All right, let's go over our supply list. So you're gonna need 2 coordinating fabrics. One is gonna be your outside fabric, the other is gonna be your inside fabric. You're also going to need a zipper that's at least 13 inches long. I have a 14-inch long zipper right here. I actually prefer one that's even longer than that to work with this project. Maybe one that's even like 16 inches. It just gives you more wiggle room, but a 14-inch one will work just fine. You also need a fusible interfacing. This is a little bit of a heavier weight. Depending on how floppy you want your bag to be in the end, could determine the thickness of your interfacing that you use. Then we also have a couple of just supplies that we're gonna need to prep. You're gonna need a ruler and a cutting mat. You're gonna need a rotary cutter, or in my classroom, if you're doing this, you could do this with a safety rotary cutter. I'll teach you how to use both. And you'll either need a small square ruler, or again, use this type of ruler so you can see the square grid that's drawn out on it. And somewhere I had a marking pen, you'll need one of those. Now, in lieu of using 2 coordinating fabrics from our bins in the classroom, or for going to buy yardage, you could go out and buy 2 fat quarters. So fat quarters you'll see in any kind of craft store or store that sells fabrics. Quilt shops have them, Walmart even in their fabric department has some fat quarters. And they're really nice because instead of having to go to the cutting counter and getting them cut, you can just grab them, and then they have the barcode on the back that they can just scan them. So if you're in a hurry, you can grab 2 of those. And then one of these fabrics would be your outside fabric and the other would be your inside. So in getting your pieces prepped and ready, basically what you're gonna be doing is cutting from each of your pieces. You're gonna be cutting a 10-inch by 13-inch rectangle. So a 10 by 13-inch rectangle, but because you're gonna be cutting through 2 layers, you're gonna end up here with 2 10 by 13-inch rectangles and 2 10 by 13-inch rectangles here. So let me show you how to do it. So we're gonna go ahead and open up our fabric. There's a lot of different ways of doing this, but we're gonna go ahead and just keep our edge of our fabric lined up with the bottom corner. So I am at the 0 point on my ruler. And so measuring from the 0 point, I need to make a 10-inch cut. So I can just put my ruler on the 10. And what I really need to do is hold this ruler super securely, not let it wiggle around on me at all. And I use my rotary cutter. So right now my rotary blade is up. And to release it, I make sure the lock is off. This button pops over, I make sure the lock is off, and I can just squeeze the handle. When I squeeze the handle, the blade drops down, and then I'm able to cut my fabric. So again, just make sure this is in place. I'm gonna keep my hand always on the ruler. Never, ever put your fingers over here. And we also don't wanna be cutting towards our fingers. Just keep the ruler stable, keep your hand on the ruler, and then the blade sits right next to it, kind of butts up against the side of the ruler as you glide it along. Now I do want to apply a little bit of pressure with my right hand as I slide the rotary down, okay? So I'm going to squeeze it, push down across, and we should have a nice straight cut from the bolt. So I'm going to keep this fabric. This is what I'm going to use for my project, and this is going to go back in the fabric bin for someone else to pick from, okay? All right, next I'm going to take that same piece that I had just used, and I am gonna just, on any line, it does not matter which line you are on, but I'm gonna go ahead and just cut off my selvages. So what I do need to do, I need to make sure that I'm straight and even down here. We wanna keep it nice and square. So I'm going to go past where my last selvage is. You really don't wanna use the selvage for your project, so you wanna trim that off. So I'll take, same process, hold my ruler steady, release the blade, press and push across, and I trim off those selvages. Those can just be thrown away in the trash. Then I'm gonna take this piece, I'm gonna line it up again with that bottom corner at the 0 point, and now I'm gonna cut a 13-inch cut. So I have a fold of my fabric right here. I have the cut edge right here where I had just trimmed away the selvage, and I'm gonna put my mark of my ruler on the 13. Okay, so I'm going to trim this away. Now I'm gonna hang on to this. I'm gonna use this for some other things here in a bit, but these are my 2 main fabric pieces that I'll need for my bag, okay? I'm gonna repeat the same process on the pink fabric. So now for the pink fabric, I'm gonna show you how to cut it if you choose to use the safety rotary. Now I really like this for anyone who wants to use it, honestly. If you're nervous about using the regular rotary cutter, this has that safety feature of the blade coming in and out, but you still are exposing the blade, and it is possible if you're careless or even just in your occasional accident to cut yourself with one of these. This safety rotary, you would really have to try to hurt yourself with it. It is very safe. So if you are concerned at all with using the regular rotary cutter, just go ahead and use the safety one. First thing I want to have you test out is make sure that the screw over on the side is not loosened. Just as we work with this one, that kind of loosens up, so you'll just want to give it a little twist to make sure it's tightened. And we're still going to start out with a 10-inch cut. So I am, instead of starting out at my 0 point down here like I did before, from the edge of my fabric, I am just going to measure over 10 inches. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's a 10 right here. So I've got the edge of my fabric lined up with the 10. 10 is at the 13, so with 23 inches to 13 inches, okay? So 10-inch across. So I'm gonna take the metal edge. If you look right here, that metal edge is in line with the blade. So I'm gonna line that metal edge of the ruler up with the 13-inch mark. Okay, top and bottom should be at the 13. Kind of wiggle it, make sure. Okay, and to be able to cut this, you have to push down on this handle, push down, and then slide it across, and then your fabric should release, okay? So that's just as simple as that to use that safety rotary cutter. Don't worry about using that. If you feel more comfortable doing that, that is what you should do. All right, so to make our other cut, we're just gonna rotate our fabric again this way. Again, all I'm doing here is just cutting off my selvage edge. So I'm gonna line that metal edge up with where I wanna make my cut. And all I'm doing is just trimming away this extra selvage. I'm gonna slide my ruler back. Now I'm gonna push down and slide across. So I cut away the selvage. And then I'm on the 23 again. So now I need to go 13 inches down from the edge because I need a 10 by 13 inch piece. So I'm gonna line the edge of my ruler up with the 13 and I'm gonna come down to the 10, okay? So I'm gonna line up here with the 10. Again, it's the metal edge is gonna line up with that 10-inch mark or whatever mark it is that you find on your ruler, as long as you end up with a 10 by 13-inch rectangle. Okay, so now I have my cut made. I've got my two 10 by 13-inch rectangles and my two 10 by 13-inch rectangles. So I'm gonna use these pieces to make the outside of my bag. And again, I'm gonna hang on to this for a piece that I'm going to need a little bit later. All right, what you're gonna do next is you're gonna take that inner facing, open it up. There might be a pin holding it closed. You'll just open it up. And you do need to set aside any scraps that are being stored in there. But I just need to square off the edge of this. So I wanna keep it really straight and even across the bottom here. I'm gonna square it off. Basically what that just means is trim off any extra. I'm gonna scooch it back just a hair. I wanna just trim off what I need to make it straight and a nice 90-degree angle at each corner. And then I need a 13-inch piece. So I'm going to lay my ruler down on the 13-inch line, and over here I'm gonna cut on the 13-inch line. Okay, so I've made that cut. Now I'm done with the batting or interfacing, and I can take this back for another student to use. And we'll put that pin back in to secure it, just to kind of hold it all together. Okay, and then we're gonna take this interfacing piece and turn it this way. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna cut it into a 10 by 13 inch rectangle. So I'm on the 27, I'm gonna make a cut on the 17-inch mark. Again, always making sure it's straight and square across. And then here we should have a 17 to the 7. You really barely have anything to cut off here on this particular piece. Maybe just about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, just to keep it square. Now that could vary from brand to brand. So if your interfacing brand could be slightly wider, You might have needed to cut a little more off to get your square. So, but the important thing is that you have two 10 by 13 interfacing rectangles. All right, next up we're gonna come to the iron just to prep a few things. These are my ends of my strips that I had just cut. Now, if you do a project using the fat quarters, yours is gonna look slightly different, but that's okay. I'll just work through that with you on our own in class. But this is that end piece when we cut it off the bolt, cut our 10 by 13s off of the end. This is that folded edge that's left. What I'm gonna have you do is just open that piece up, give it a little spritz with your water, and then basically you're just gonna be pressing the crease out of that and making it one long piece. And then next up, you're gonna do that with your other piece. And all that water does is just produces a little bit of steam, and steam makes it a little bit hotter and allows that crease to come out a little bit easier. So I just wanna get rid of that crease down the middle. So those just sit aside for just a second. Then the next thing I need to do is I need to attach my fusible interfacing to the wrong side of whatever fabric I want to be on the outside of my project. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to feel my interfacing. I can feel the bumpy glue side. I can feel the bumpy glue side here, and I want that to be face up. So I'm going to lay this one also, bumpy glue side, face up. And again, that is that adhesive. We've used this on some other projects if you're in my class, but the bumpy side is the adhesive that when ironed will melt to the back of your fabric, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of my 10 by 13 inch rectangles, and I'm gonna lay it right on top of that interfacing. It should fit perfectly. We do not wanna touch the iron to the interfacing. It can melt and ruin the iron, or at least temporarily ruin it where it could hurt your fabric. So we want to make sure we do not touch the iron to the interfacing at all, but we do want to press it really well. So I'm going to go ahead and take the iron, nice hot iron. I have this on the cotton setting, and we're going to go ahead and press it. I'm going to give it a first initial press, and then I'm going to give it some steam. Now, if you notice that your pieces do not fit together, if you say, well, my interfacing piece is hanging out, sticking out here, so you feel like you have to iron on it, don't do that. Go ahead and first double check, measure your rectangles, make sure they are both 10 by 13 inches. And then if you had interfacing that stuck out past it, just trim it off. You want it to be even. Okay, so it's starting to do an initial stick. Then I'm gonna take my spray bottle and just give it a little spray. And again, that moisture from the water creates steam. Steam makes it hotter, makes it secure better. You just don't want your interfacing to be kind of flopping around on your back of your fabric. Okay. And you only need the interfacing on your outer fabric, the fabric that you see on the outside of your bag. So you do want to determine at this point which one is your outer fabric and which one is the inner. Okay. All right, so that is prepped.